Hello and welcome to another special episode of BlenderNest. Today we're doing another art review. This is work that's submitted to us by community members over on the BlenderNest community Discord server, the link to which you'll find in the description below if you would like to have your work submitted and reviewed by us, or if you'd like to get feedback from peers or participate in contests, challenges, community conversations, and the like. The Discord server is the place to be, so make sure you check that out in the description. First up today, we have submissions by One Raw Artist. A quick side note here: One Raw Artist shared with us that they are an architect with a master's degree in sustainable architecture. So that's a bit of background on this piece. What do we think?
Well, I will say, first of all, one thing that I really like about this is that it's got that very parametric style going on with the wall there, where it's all a little bit generative. And I love my generative stuff. I just think it just kind of adds a lot to it. It kind of takes you away from reality for a little bit. But another little extra detail I like is that though we've got those curves on the wall there, it translates over to the furniture as well, like with those small seats you see with the armrests and the little pieces of wood that are going around the edge of it. So I like these little consistencies with the design. So it sort of pairs up nice. One thing that I think is a little bit off with the render is that some of the surfaces seem very flat. Like if you look at the wall behind where the kind of character is, this base character, there's no texture there. The lighting seems a bit flat above where the windows are. Um, so I feel like there's a little bit of discrepancy there because I can definitely see some texture on like the wood structures to the right, but then on the left side of the screen here, there's nothing. So maybe kind of balancing that out a bit more would be a nice thing to do.
Yeah, I like this. I'm drawn by it. Like Curtis said, I really like that wall pattern. There's a good flow around the room. Like you can take your eye from the eye line of the character, sort of up the stairs and along that wall and down the artwork on the side and everything. It probably could use a couple of, I don't know, subtle foreground elements or maybe something on the tiles just to sort of hint at, um, you know, something to sort of bring you back to the figure. The one thing that kind of irks me, and I'm just wondering what the fix for this is the view out the window. It looks like the poster of a view. It doesn't look, um, for all the depth of this actual scene, the the exterior looks flat. And I'm not sure entirely what that fix is. It's possibly because it's just mapped on. But perhaps, I don't know if the mapping should be from the same angle and then remapped or something like that. But yeah, it definitely looks like that's more a mural rather than a view.
Yeah, I'll second that. And I'll preface everything I say here by the fact that if I go by the internet, then I read a Facebook post once on architecture, and that totally makes me an expert, and all your architecture is wrong. But I'm not going to go that direction, and I'm going to say I know absolutely nothing about sustainable architecture. So kudos on the master's degree. First off, that's phenomenal, and reusable or sustainable architecture is phenomenal. I love this piece. I think it's great. I part of me thinks that Greg Brady's room is above that staircase, but that's cool. And I'll second what Paul said about this the outside. That's the only real thing that's hitting me. Is that the the yeah, the outside is just like it would be really either blown out um, with the dimly lit room, or it would be the other way around, balanced for exposure. But it does look kind of like it's a mapped thing outside. It's probably what it is. I mean, you probably just didn't, just that was an afterthought to the whole piece. I mean, you want to focus on the actual architecture that you're designing, which is cool. So the only thing that it does, as an artist, I look at that and I go, yeah, I don't know, it does look like a mural, not like the outside. Even if the glass were tinted, which it may be for solar reasons and heat and thermal properties of sustainable architecture, I can understand that, which would dull out the background as well. But it still looks a bit flat. So maybe just get a scene or something, put it back there, or blow it out a little bit more might might work and sell it. But other than that, and I think the light on the ground would be a bit stronger too. The light that's falling off, hitting the chairs, coming from the outside, maybe a bit stronger depending on the exposure and the bracketing that you'd be using in camera. But other than that, this is great, man. And again, like kudos on the master's degree. That's phenomenal.
I do have
Another.
the fix.
Oh, you have a
I have
fix?
the fix for the window, yes. He's obviously UV unwrapped that. Set his UV to window, not UV. That way it will generate based on the camera angle, and this will very quickly fix that flatness. Okay, I'm done.
Excellent.
I just want to add a bit about the rug on the floor. Fabrics are kind of like this, are very difficult to get right. But if you kind of look around along the right side of the rug here, first of all, the texture seems a bit large scale compared to like the rest of the details in the scene. Like we've got some very thick, threads going on here. But the edges of rugs are, I think, what makes or breaks the illusion sometimes. And the right edge is where you can kind of see like just a very harsh cutoff for this texture and for the mesh. So maybe even just having a few little, what's the word, like I'm not a fabric expert, I don't know the words, but like these little tails coming along at the end of like every thread or something, just a tiny bit that comes out might just fringe. Okay, yeah, might help with that. Nice.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't think I can add more to what's already been said. The one thing that gave me a moment for pause in a way that was that detracted from how much I enjoyed the scene was exactly what we've kind of touched on, was this window here. It does seem a bit flat, and at first I thought it was deliberate, like Paul I think said might be a poster, but then I noticed the light, which is a really nice touch, the light coming through these windows here. So I would do as Paul suggested and try and see how you can add some more dimension to that. In terms of the render itself, I think it's gorgeous. Like Kev said, I'm not an architect and I don't play one on TV, but I love this, and this is the sort of space that I think I would have a good time in. This kind of really funky seating on the wall looks really fun, and I also love the fact that for your piece you actually included this sort of Mad Cat version of the render, so that we can have a different idea and view and perspective on what you've done. So thanks for your submission, One Artist. I hope that you're watching and that you enjoy our take on this. Also, I'd like to note that this submission was submitted in April 15th of 2021, which means that we have a giant backlog of pieces of art to get through. And I'll take this moment now to remind you, if you like this format, if you want your art to be reviewed by us in this format, then like this video, let us know in the comments, not in the description, and subscribe if you haven't already, because we'll be doing a lot more of these. We have a running backlog again on the Discord server. The link is in the description. So if you want to check that out and be a part of this community, then I definitely urge you to do that. Now moving on to Anthony's submission. This is a submission by Anthony KAHA. They'd submitted several, all of which were stunning, and I chose this one because they made note of the fact that there is a manta flow simulation going on here, and that everything in the scene is handmade or homemade.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I love it, but is this the barge that it's landing on? Because isn't that the target off to the right down there? So I don't know if it's actually landing in the right spot, but I love it. I don't know, but one thing that I mean, I can't take my eyes off the target now. One thing that I love about this immediately is that there is motion blur, like at the top of the rocket, but it's not overdone. Like if you're looking like down, especially halfway down and then even lower, there's almost no noticeable motion blur. So I like how it's just enough that you can tell that it's moving down, which I think is good because it's so easy to overdo it, like on renders like this. Also, just the emission coming off the I don't know what would be the correct term here.
Thruster, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be thrust.
Yeah, the thrust. Yeah, I like it because again, that's not too overpowering, not overdone with the bloom. So I just think balance with the effects is done well here. So I guess that's usually like I think a telltale sign for someone that's been doing it for a little while, because I think when you're starting out and you're just first playing with these kinds of effects, it's so easy to go, wow, this looks really cool, and then like blow things out way out of proportion. But which kind of makes me think, I wonder if this might have also been done slightly from reference as well, because of course there's lots of footage of these boosters coming and landing. So That's just a thought that's crossed my mind. But yeah, I really like it.
Yeah, I was going to say that there is quite a bit of reference out there for these I think the Falcon reusables that SpaceX is relanding. I think this is a really good start. I like it. The the things that strike me from this the hot glow on the rocket on the thrust is really cool, but there'd also be a ton of of like smoke, steam, debris flowing where the thrust is hitting the ground. And it looks like it's landing, I can't tell from this, but it looks like it's landing in grass, which would probably ignite that whole area. But that's that's neither here nor there. The lighting on the rocket is pretty cool, depending on where the sun is I guess it's looking pretty low on the horizon in this piece. Maybe I'm not sure exactly where. Yeah, I can see it actually in the clouds. I think that the sunlight would be a little, probably a bit brighter, illuminating. So maybe getting a kick off the background, maybe around the side of the rocket itself, would be really cool. I see that the fairings have been jettisoned. That's really cool, and that you have the landing pads out extended. Yeah, I like this. I think it's a really good start. I think the fire effect looks cool. The blooming looks great. As I said though, I think it would be, you have to add some kicked up coming off of that, coming off of that area. Unless this is, and that's not grass, and maybe that is actual smoke and stuff hitting on the barge. So maybe that's not grass. It's like I said, it's hard to tell. So if it's not, then kudos. Then great. I'm loving that word today. Uh, you're definitely getting the exhaust and the plume and everything happening there. So yeah, I like that, man. I think you just push it with the lighting a little bit more, and you got something really good. I'm digging it.
Just before
Yeah.
Paul goes, I will say I think that is the barge, because I think that's the color that the pads are on the barge, because I think when they land on the mainland, it's usually like much more of a concretey base thing, and this is more like a yellowy, slightly greeny. But I think that's just a point of confusion in this piece. It feels a bit offset, and yeah, I think you're right. Actually, it's quite dark. Like you see where like the I want to use the word plumage, where the smoke is at the bottom. You see around the edge there. Like, would it really be black like that? Because it's there's so much force going on here. It's just pushing like so much air pressure out at once. I think, as you say, there'd just be a lot more kickback with just air, not as much raw dark smoke going on.
Yeah, the thrust on these things are amazing. So I think getting more plume. Yeah, you know what? I can see that now actually. So I take it back. That's not grass it's landing on. That's actually the plume. Um, yeah, it's kind of hard to see over the internet here, but so yeah, it does look like a barge. I see one of the targets in the back, one of the landing pad target areas. Yeah, this is a barge. So yeah, just I would maybe lighten up the smoke at the edges, unless of course your reference is showing dark, and that would obviously be the chemical interaction happening when the thrust is hitting the barge itself. That would dictate what type of smoke you're getting, what type of exhaust and stuff you're going to see in the volumes there. So, yeah, cool. I like that. And if you did model this reusable rocket booster, that's awesome, man. That's a good job. I like that. You're getting some good detail in there. Yeah, I think this is good.
Ooh,
Cool.
am I going to be the voice of? I'm going to be never invited to one of these again. I see this piece as something that I've personally done before, and I've seen so many times before, where I look at it and I just go, it is technically perfect. Like, I'm pretty sure that this could have been modeled from an architectural sketch, and there was a reference there, and everything was looked at in terms of physics and all that sort of stuff. But this is where, because we've got the option or the luxury to work in 3D, now we can push it. Now we can add just a little bit of artistic interpretation, some stylized something to tell us something about what we're looking at. Okay, so first off, okay, we're looking at a booster rocket. We know it's probably some sort of a SpaceX, Blue Origin type thing. Okay, we've seen them a lot. And getting back to that sort of plumage down the bottom or the smoke, I'm looking at a reference of one of the SpaceX rockets now. Yeah, look, there's got to be is it, my question is it taking off or is it landing? You know, what are your guys' thoughts? Do you think, which one do you think it is?
It's
should
it's
be
landing because the fairings are gone.
It's
If you look at the top, the
because the
fairings are
bearings.
off. It's delivered its payload, so it's coming back down.
Right. Okay. So it's landing. Okay. I think there has to be something about maybe the angle at which the camera is set to sort of suggest that. Not entirely sure what that is. I think it's an artistic decision. This is definitely something that's showing off the technical skill of the artist rather than the artistic composition or anything. Smoke, we sort of mistook. I mistook that for grass and sort of missing the pad, and now I'm seeing it now. Looking at a reference, even when they're landing, there's this massive ring of glow of stuff that almost looks like it's on fire, and then we've got a lot of theme or something coming off it. Now, what I would do artistically, because it is a composition, is I would have the plumage sort of going sort of up in a bit of a V shape off to the sides, right? Because that would sort of draw your eye up to the clouds and then around to the composition, then obviously to the top of the rocket and then back down. And it keeps the eye of the viewer interested in the art piece. I mean, yes, it's supposed to be a technical representation, but it's also a composition. And so that would probably be my advice.
I think that's a great note to. I would love also to see just some things, something kicking up off of the ground as this is landing and descending back onto this platform or wherever it might be landing. In terms of the technical prowess of the artist, I mean, that's undoubtable. There's a lot of detail here, which unfortunately, based on this rendering that we're looking at here, you can't really see, but on the original piece, it's very much there. And obviously the fact that on this one, as well as the others that were submitted, which you can check out on the server under the art review channel, there are several of different shots and different frames of this rocket, and the different simulations, which is the point that they noted to us. I think in terms of the simulation, really nailed it. I love the glow here as well. I think it really adds a lot to the scene, and I would echo a lot of what's already been said in terms of both the lighting, sort of sun location, as well as the values of what we're seeing, and then putting some, I would say, finishing touches on it, or something a little bit extra to give us a better sense of dimension, and kind of draw us in just a little bit more. But overall, a great piece, Anthony. Well done.
I do have one last thing to add. Photography wise, if like this is going to be shot at an extreme telephoto, so I think that the back is going to be compressed a lot more visually into the foreground, and everything is going to look a lot more compressed than this. Because if the camera from where I'm sitting right now, if the camera's right there, it's already melted.
That's
So
a very valid
if,
point.
I think
I'd also
this
say it
definitely
would be very in focus too.
Yeah, it would. So I would definitely shoot this thing at, use a camera that's, set your camera north of like, I don't even know, north of like 200 millimeters
200,
at least.
yeah.
At least, maybe,
Mhm.
or maybe even 400 millimeters. I mean,
I think
this would be far away.
if you want to go for accuracy, do an animation, and then as it comes down, cut the camera feed out, because that's what always happens. The vibrations are just extreme.
Yeah, have some glass melt.
Yeah. Artistically, I'd buy it, but like I'd probably say, at least think of that as an option. And if it is going to be a telephoto lens, everything is in focus. Would it be all in focus at like, is that 200 mil?
It depends on what the aperture is set to, even if it's at 200 mil. But as Kev said, this would look a lot flatter. And we see, I mean, this looks to me kind of like I don't know, Kev, what would you say? Like 50, something closer to, definitely not telephoto.
Yeah,
Um,
I would say maybe 50 and maybe approaching light telephoto at 70. I'm not sure. It doesn't look 35 because I don't see any bowing out. I don't see any barrel
right.
or anything, no distortion at all. So I definitely think it's approaching like the beginning of telephoto, but this thing would be shot from this thing would be shot from far away, unless your camera is completely like heat resistant, which I don't
Yeah.
know many that are, even GoPros.
GoPro
But yeah, I don't know.
3000. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think yeah, if you're shooting stuff like this, you want to go telephoto if you want to add that realism. Unless you're going for photo surrealism, then it doesn't really matter. But yeah, that's what I'd say.
Thanks so much for submitting, Anthony. Now we're moving on to a submission by Socks. This is, I'll give my quick take on this. It's got a vaporwave aesthetic with a twist that I really like. And it's got a bit of a dark, it's got dark values. It was a little bit difficult to see this on the screen in which I was viewing this originally before I set it up. Now I can see a bit more detail down here, but I would say for both for your render and just for anyone watching, just try to think about the values in your darks so that the blacks aren't too crushed on screens that are lesser than. Oftentimes we're working, or maybe not oftentimes, but sometimes we're working on screens that are a little bit better than the average phone screen. So it's always a good idea to try to export your frame, check it on your phone for the values, and see if it's something that kind of matches up with the average screen that people will be seeing it in. This here now looks a lot better than it did previously, so maybe it was a color management issue on my other screen, but just something that I noted down here to keep in mind. But what are your takes on this?
Well, I will say I'm actually quite familiar with Socks's work because I've seen a fair amount of it before. They've also done 1 or 2 challenges on my server before. So I'm quite familiar with their style, and they do quite a lot of this stuff where like you've got this very interesting focal point. There's been like another kind of Greek or Romanish type head in other pieces of work, very differently colored though. So that I know that they're always very good at getting the focus right on these. Like the head is well lit, the eyes going off, just making it all as interesting as possible. Various distribution of shapes and contours going on. That's always nice. But yeah, the rest of this scene is a little bit confusing sometimes. As you say, the darks are just a bit too dark. What's this going on in the bottom left here with this graffiti wall? Like, is there like a lower area down there that it doesn't really feel like there's, uh, any obvious indication that there's a depressed area of ground down there. It just feels like that wall's been shoved in kind of randomly. Um, but one thing I do like is in the grass, these kind of blue lights. I don't know if they're supposed to be fireflies or something more organic on the grass, but I do like it anyway, because if that wasn't there and it was just like this continuous dark grass, I think that would be quite stale. So I think that's quite nice, but it would be good to have some maybe more color down there even. You've got so much color elsewhere. Maybe if we could have a bit more blue on the grass there, it might just be a bit nicer. And that would help to kind of balance out the darkness a bit. But I do like what's going on here, and I think the color choice is pretty good with the face and the very strong, energetic blue eyes contrasted against the kind of reddish sky. So I like that.
Yeah. This is one of those art pieces. I'm not familiar with the artist, so I'm going to go in totally candid, totally blind. These are one of those art pieces that I look at and I just go, I know what's working, I know what's not. What is working? The colors, most of the composition, the idea is great. I love the concept. I think it was Arturo when you zoomed in, and I finally saw the guy sitting on his car. I was like, oh, I get it now. I get it. And could you just zoom out just a touch, so we can sort of see the head? Okay, that's good. Here's my take. I would crop this. I'd crop it for compositional reasons, so that you could see the guy sitting on his car a little bit clearer, because zoomed out, it looks like, okay, the concept is great. There's this obviously Instagram-worthy 1080 by 1080 composition. But when you zoom into something more of a letterboxed sort of 16:9 or even narrower type of field, you can let this head go out of frame a little bit because we sort of get the hint of those floating rocks, but then he's down in the bottom right-hand corner. The other thing is those fireflies. I really love the concept, but there's only a hint of them being fireflies. For a second there, I thought because of the surrealism of the scene, maybe they're glowing flowers. And the only thing that gives it away is that there's a couple of fireflies right in the center, just in front of the guy's car, sort of lifting up off the ground. And the more I look at it, the more I can see that some more are. But I think something like that's got to be more obvious. What I like about the fireflies is they match the color of the eyes, and obviously you're going for this sort of what's it called? It's a complementary color scheme where you've got the pinks, but you've also got the blues. And to have the high values in your very low value areas is it's a fantastic artistic trick. To balance it, because you've got this bright area in the eyes, I would almost look diagonally down, right, to the darker area before the car, and probably put maybe a big bunch of fireflies sort of lifting up off the ground there to sort of add a bit of color. Maybe there's something that hints at the pink, maybe some of the grass or something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's one of those art pieces I look at and I'm just like, oh, 95% there. Just do these two things and it's like, and you've got me. I don't know. Yeah. Kev?
Oh yeah, I everything Paul said. Paul, when I make a new reel, you're gonna have to take a look at it for me.
Uh-oh.
I think you're nailing all the good art parts. Yeah, I agree. I agree mostly with Paul. I didn't exactly know when I looked at this what I was looking at with the glowing fireflies. So having them, more random in flocks, in maybe use Boyd's or something, just to have them flock more in certain areas and just have random distribution, which would be pretty cool. I didn't know what that piece in the lower left corner was. I thought when I first looked at this, I thought those were thumbnails of other art pieces that you had. I didn't quite understand what was going on down there. So maybe a little more light in that area, so you could figure out the viewer would figure out what that is. And I think the only other thing I might do is, being that this the David head with the rocks are floating up in the sky. I'm not quite sure exactly how close those are to the guy or not. So I would kind of delineate that with a little more atmosphere up there, just to kind of just show us where in space he is. If he's right near the guy, then I kind of be worried for the guy, because gravity and rocks and dangerous stuff. Other than that, if he had a little more atmosphere, a little less contrast, so he blends into the sky a little more, would tell me a little bit more about where he's sitting. But I mean, that's just your artistic call. I can't. It's not like a critique. It's more just like a confusion point when I look at this. Other than that, I have a trouble commenting on anything that's abstract like this, because abstract is so close to the artist that you're not going for anything that's you're not going for photorealism or anything. You're going for your own expression. So I always have trouble any kind of critique. So I would just kind of fall back on what confuses me about the piece and try to rectify that stuff. But that's about it. I like it.
There's one more thing I would add, which is "Show me what you got," which is a very obscure reference, which I'm hoping someone listening to this will understand.
I got that reference.
Yay! Thank you. All right, nice.
Yeah, to quickly recap or add a little bit, actually. This bit confused me as well when I was putting this together. I was like, I understand what's happening, right? Like, maybe this may or may not be this person's car. It could be. And actually, I'll preface this by saying that this is the fun bit about doing these and about just reviewing and looking at art in general, because it's a lot of it is just someone made this and now we're all interpreting our own take on it. But maybe this is not this person's car. Maybe it's a broken down car that's part of some reservation that they can visit. I live close to Quincy Quarries, which is a quarry or a rock face and rock wall reservation here in Massachusetts. And there's a lot of graffiti in that area. And there's broken down cars and stuff around. And so immediately when I saw this, I was like, I understand what's going on here. But the angle was what was throwing me off slightly. If this were slightly, if this corner were slightly over here and we could see some dimension of it, then maybe it would make a little less of a distraction. And then the only other thing that I think Paul slightly touched on was the directionality of the light. I would love to see, and I know that it's happening here to some degree, and here as well, but I would love to see some more of the pinkish and orangish tones of the light in the sky as the as the sun is setting, touching on this grass lightly, so that we can get some more contrast in these dark areas. Not so much here. I think this is great in terms of darkness and the light shining off of these fireflies, but I think that little touch there would just ground this even more. And with Paul's take, I also agree that this could do just as well in this framing that I have it in now, or something similar where we're close in. But even as wide as this, it looks great, and I was really happy to bring this one in because I actually am not familiar with Sox's work, but this is exactly the sort of thing that makes me go, ooh, I'd love to see what else this person is making. So thanks for submitting.
I should show you one of the other pieces they did, which was, I think I prefer it because it was just basically one color, which was basically red, and there was a lot of emission, and there was like a larger head going on. There was kind of lava coming out of the eyes, which actually looked pretty good. And the blacks weren't so kind of, crunched out. So, like, I know they're capable of doing it. I feel like maybe it was just a bit off balance with this one. But yeah, I love their work.
Thank you, Sox. Now we're moving on to, I believe this is Julian. And this piece, I believe, was titled Atelier, or yes, Atelier. I'm not sure. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think that this is Picasso. Is that right? Maybe not.
Well, but when looking at this, I thought it was... Yeah, I'm kind of wondering, because of the quote on the right, then whether this is the person that made that quote, but I'm not sure. Constantin, but I don't know.
I think the thing that he's sitting on looks, I guess it's supposed to be cement, but it looks like carpet. But I don't know what's going on there. But I like all the abstract stuff. The light is kind of throwing me a little bit. The shadow, the gobo. If it's coming from a skylight or something, not quite sure. And I think the shadowness of, I think it just looks, to me, it again, this is an abstract piece, so the only thing that's confusing me, I think it needs a lot more contrast. It looks a bit flat to me. I would push the lighting a lot further in this piece and bring out these shapes, because I think that the strength of these abstract pieces are the shapes, and I think using light to carve out these shapes from each other would really make this piece come alive. I think it just needs more light, more glinting off surfaces, more edging, more separation of these abstract pieces to give them their own life. I think that would make this a lot stronger. I like all the different shapes, and I like the abstractness of it. I just think it could be pushed further, and it would be really, really cool.
So I'd love to quickly add in here. So I had to look it up, and I'll paste it here in voice chat, and I'll make a link available to it in the description of the video as well. But just so that you can get an idea of what we're looking at here, this piece by Julian Luce is, as Curtis pointed out, likely Constantin Brancusi, who's the person who is attributed, or the artist who is whose quote here is attributed in the background. And if you can see in the image of this article, which is talking about the radically reductive sculptures of this artist, this is actually a render that is meant to approximate the studio of this artist, who is known for their reductive sculptures and I guess this sort of phallic piece here, which appears in several other results for this person online. So just a bit of background on this piece.
Well, this makes a lot more sense now, because having a look at those images, you're like, oh yeah, actually, a lot of this is replicated from that. So that makes it pretty cool. Because in my mind, when having a look at this piece, I thought, okay, maybe this is a museum, and we can see that this guy's image is kind of projected on this kind of blue screen that we've got coming out from this ground piece there. So in my mind, it'd be like, okay, you come to this museum, you can kind of experience being around this person, even though they're not here with us, But the idea of it being their studio is pretty cool as well. And having a look at the image that you've kind of sent on this website, they've recreated the style of the fireplace there as well, but they've shifted some things around. I immediately thought when first looking at this artwork, though, that these abstract shapes up against the corner of the back wall were just there for filler, but they have been kind of copied from the original image, which kind of makes more sense. But in the image, there's some curtain stuff going on behind, so I think it might be a nice detail if that could actually be added on the back wall there. I think there are some areas of this artwork that maybe have just been overlooked a slight bit. I'll note a couple of things that I can see. First of all, the transparency on the image of the guy around the edges, especially of his clothes, like maybe around the arm on the left side, should we say? It's like the transparency hasn't really been cleaned up a bit there. On the thing he's sitting on, in quotes, on the left side, I think there's a bit of a shadowy issue around where the bevel is on the left side of the object. And what else have we got? If you can zoom out slightly. I think the brick texture inside the fireplace feels off if we zoom in on that. It's not lit for the scene. There's like way too much. It's an outside brick texture put inside of the fireplace, basically. What else? I quite like the rest of it though. I like that you've got all the kind of sculptures that are appropriate for the studio. So anyone that knows this person will be able to go, aha, yes, that's quite perfect.
I saw this as a couple of years ago. I taught a class on creating museums for the modern era using AR technology, and we've all seen what lidar and stuff like that can do. And I get the idea of this piece, and I get like I have to Google this guy as well. I was not familiar with his artwork, and I didn't want to sound like a complete ignorant art critic here. But my critique is I'd push this idea. I'd push it further. This is obviously a recreation of an image with a take that is, okay, what if we went into a studio and saw a virtual representation of the artist in his studio? I love that idea. I say to the artist, push it. Don't know how, but just push that idea. Things like you said, Curtis, cleaning up those edges on that image. Maybe find a way of, making that projection part of the aesthetic or part of the idea. If his thing was all about reductionism, how would you represent that in a projection of the artist? You know what I'm saying? I mean, that could be a road you want to go down. It doesn't have to be. I can see what he's done with all the textures. This is obviously a lot of texture mapping, and he's obviously gotten into that and into some of the lighting and that Blender is capable of. Again, it looks more like bump mapping, and like I can see the technicality in Blender here. I see bump mapping, I see texture mapping, I see ambient occlusion. I don't think there's any compositing in this. I think this is just one straight render. And I think things like that could actually be pushed, just to really explore, like you said, Curtis, the brick wall. This is where you have to start taking into account what does an indoor lighting situation require out in terms of how light interacts with certain surfaces. Definitely some research or stuff into some procedural textures or even displacement mapping, I think could help a lot of this piece. But those things are technical. Artistically, I'd say push this idea. Simplicity is complexity resolved. Great. But how would you go ahead and represent that artist in his space to mirror or express that idea for a sort of a modern retelling of that picture?
Looking at Sketchfab, just a cursory glance under the artist's surname to see if I can find any of these other pieces. I don't see very many of them up there, so I wonder if Julian here, or Julian, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, hand remodeled all of these, in which case kudos to you, to quote Kev. I think that's great, and I love the way that you've laid it out. I also am happy that it got me and us thinking to the point where we actually had to research, because I said, is this Picasso? Maybe, kind of somewhat uneducatedly, I guess. But Curtis pointed out it might be this person whose quote we're seeing on the wall, and so I had to look this person up, and then found an image of their studio, which immediately was kind of like I don't know, finding a new Lego kit to play with, because now I'm with that context, as I'm sure others will have it. I can look at this and go, oh, I recognize this piece, or I recognize this other piece and these others, or this artist's studio. This one, which is called The Kiss, that I'd seen before but didn't know who it was attributed to.
Oh,
again,
now I understand. I had no idea what that was, but now you say that, it makes more sense.
And so I again, looking through Sketchfab just to see if this was maybe a kit bashing of different models. I didn't find too many. Like, this is called apparently Table of Silence, and I think it's a really fun art history kind of journey here, because for those that recognize it, they'll immediately know what they're looking at, and for those that don't, there's something new to find every single time. So yeah, great work here. The one thing for me, at least, that was a little bit point of confusion, as we've been using, was this hologram. I actually worked on a piece that was just like a personal project in which I made a hologram just like this one, except it was green. And I also made a platform that was a lot like this one to sort of project it on. And the one thing for me that's not really selling it is that this image is in black and white, and the rest of the hologram screen, or whatever display we're having here, let's not get into future potential technologies, but it's blue. And so I would love it would sell it to me personally a bit more if that blue was also reflected in this image that we're seeing here. But other than that, I think this is a great piece, especially even if you didn't hand model these yourself. Just the placement and the reconstruction of the studio on its own is worthy of praise. So well done.
Yeah, and thanks for teaching us about Constantin.
Yes. Next up, we've got Bouncy Hippo. A quick note here, Bouncy Hippo participated in the Earth Day Challenge over on the BlenderNest Discord server, which I keep plugging because it's a great place to be. And that is how I know about Bouncy Hippo. But Curtis, I know that you have a bit more background on this, so why don't you share with us?
Yeah, so Bouncy Hippo, who used to be known as Bouncy Cow, is someone that takes part on my server quite often, and this piece was for one of our art challenges, and that challenge was called Floating City. And what they said for that when they posted this was they couldn't resist the temptation to recreate one of Miyazaki's masterpieces for this competition, Laputa Castle in the Sky, being my favorite movie of all time. So that's the quote that was given with this. So it is a recreation of something. But like when I saw this, when it first came through, I was like, wow, because I wasn't expecting this much kind of detail around the whole city structure. I also like how it's got like kind of different elements of time, should we say, like more futuristic at the top, kind of older around the bottom. But even though there's lots of fine details in this, the one thing that I did like in particular was that if you look underneath the old city on the left, it's kind of got like this rail scaffolding going around it underneath. It's a bit dark to see on the stream, but I can see it's there on like the full version of the image. And there's just something about like that substructure going on, which I really liked. Like, forget the rest of like the nice looking imagery. Something about that I just liked, because having little things like that helps with a bit of realism, even though it's totally not realistic, just little details that really carry it through.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing is like the material for the ball at the bottom there is, I don't know why, it's very satisfying. It's like a kind of very marbly looking thing. Anyway, go ahead, Paul.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was waiting for you to finish. I like this piece. Yes, Laputa. I always hear different translations on, and every time they update the voice actors, when they do that, they always pronounce it different. Yeah, I immediately got the reference. And so, like, yes, this one drew my eye. I like it. So I'm going to pick on the technical aspects, which I think this artist could fix, if that's okay.
No, never.
Damn it,
Go
bad,
for it.
Paul, bad. Get off. Okay, first off, that cloud in the foreground is too crisp around the edges. I'm pretty sure it's a volumetric, and I'm pretty sure it's technically perfect, but it needs to just have a little bit of, I don't know, blurriness or around, especially around the edge down the bottom of that cloud. Right? It's too it almost. I bet you this is rendered in scene, and yet it still looks like a cutout. And whatever you can do to minimize that or make it look more like the clouds in the background, do it, especially around that area. Second thing, there is amazing detail, and the detail and texture on the brickwork and cement work in the old city especially denotes the size. And the tragic thing for me is that the texture of the mosses or whatever those hanging plants are really work against that. I urge you to take a look at or Google Paul Topoulos, who I should probably put that in the voice chat. Am I pronouncing it correct? Topoulos. He was a texture artist for Pixar and ILM and Disney, and eventually all three, even though he moved from job to job. And he has wonderful things to say about how texturing adds to scale. And you've got it. You pretty much nailed it on the brickwork and the render of that rock, but the hanging greenery looks like moss. Looks like moss that you would see on a close up of a rock. And so whatever you can do to make that look more like a lot of vines from far away or that sort of thing, do that, because there's so much in this piece which is so going great. I love the idea of like the old city and then the futuristic thing. And even the tree up the top sort of suggested to me that this futuristic city might be not that old, but it's not brand new. It's been left, and then suddenly this tree has bloomed. So the tree is the newest thing about this piece. It's even newer than the futuristic city. And I love those roots that sort of go down along this sphere as well. I love that idea that you can see the tree at the top and then the roots that go all the way down the bottom. The details in this are great, and that's why I think just the little touches, that extra 5% is where this is just going to sort of, I don't know, just push it to personally where I want it to be. But that's a subjective thing.
The one thing I missed some of what you said, so if you had addressed the bounce light, then forgive me. But I think there would be, especially when you're up in the clouds like this and the volume, especially all this volume, it would be so much scattered light that crushing the blacks over on the left side underneath the city, you'd probably get a lot more fill down there. And what Paul was saying about the scale and the textures, especially of the moss coming down. And then the only other thing I would say is composition-wise, you got a lot of negative space on the left side of the composition. There's a lot of things happening on the right side, and the back recedes. So maybe even just push it, push this thing slightly out of frame. So you're given you could even have just 3/4 of the city thing showing, but it would fill out that space on the left side, just composition-wise. Other than that, I love this idea. This is really cool.
Is this the Bouncy Cows?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Hey, hi guys.
Hi, Jared.
Bouncy Hippo.
Hello.
Hi. Just fixed my mic.
Yeah. You see, did you notice that Jared said Bouncy Cow to start with because he's familiar with this person?
Yeah.
They changed their name somewhat recently.
Oh,
We
it's
know their
Bouncy
true
Hippo now.
identity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no. You can mute it.
No, it's fine.
Okay. In the critics, I really think I like the bottom ball there.
Yeah.
It's really good. I mean, I really like texture, and then I like the mossy walls. And compositional wise, I think it can have better lighting. Like, I mean, if you think about it, if there is any clouds on top of this, you need something to block that really dark places over there. And I am thinking there's a cloud which is blocking that. But I would kind of like rotate the camera so that I'll get a better view of the castle. Because I think that, I mean, I'm imagining in my head that it might look better that way. That's all. But yeah, really like the style. The plants and the clouds are really good. That's it for me.
All right. Thanks for your submission, Bouncy Hippo. Bouncy Cow. Bouncy whoever you might be. Next up, we've got the submission of Thuggin character duo by Matt Birdstrike, who submitted this over on the server. And my first take on this was, is that the Energizer Bunny? But I'll leave it up to you all. What are your thoughts?
Well, I want to say, because I'm having a look at the high detailed image on my side monitor, and before people start, there is a lot of fine detail in this which I think is being lost in the stream. So just keep that in mind when giving the critiques here.
Okay, can you upload that in the voice chat text?
Yes, I will give you the full link there. So if you want to click on it and zoom in,
Oh, wow.
because there's a lot of detail. I'm having a look around like the eye for the turtle and like the hair, kind of the individual hairs coming off the bunny, and
My
where
God, it's really good.
the painted skin on the turtle as well. They got all these tiny flecks of paint going on. So there's a lot of stuff.
Ah, man. I really like the bubble gum over there. It's just sticking to the shell. I assume it's bubble gum.
I would think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's called chewing gum.
Oh my
too.
god,
Yeah.
this turtle is like a criminal. He's got like, the teardrop
Sword.
kind of tattoos going on.
Yes, there's the sword as well. Whoa.
Even down to like the little droplets coming off the saliva, as it's kind of
Yeah.
flying off, and there's just a lot of detail here. The
And
eyes
then,
as well.
yeah, there's a watch, like a golden watch, like a very cool dude over there on the, like the bunny looks. And then there is this golden chain too. It doesn't look when I'm looking from far, but if I really zoom in, it's really like really nice detail.
Yeah, I really like this piece. This is really cool.
I have no critics for this one.
I do actually have something that could add to this.
Go.
The bunny's foot. Now, bunnies have like pretty cute feet anyway. But this is just so plain. I feel like you could add a bit more of the personality. Maybe keep like the little pads or something the same color as the nose, but maybe just do something else with the feet rather than keep them just completely round like that. Might even be another funny place to sneak a little tattoo again for personality.
Ah, nice.
But,
That would be.
yeah, I love it otherwise.
The only thing I have that confuses me is the sharp edge where his head meets his body, right behind his eye. The turtle, right behind the turtle, that sharp edge right there. I don't know. Maybe just add some light that would reflect off that just to separate that a little bit. So it looks like a very harsh edge. Other than that, man, I don't have nothing else to say.
Everything about it, both the attention to detail, the immense amount of detail that Curtis pointed out, this like spittle here, we've got the great materials here on gold, which are kind of lost a little bit in this stream. So if you want to see the full resolution version of it, definitely go and check it out. But there's not much I would add. Everything, like the lighting is very strong. The characters clearly are very strong. The movement as well in the piece is very strong. The feet was the one thing my one note wasn't actually about the bunny's foot, which I didn't think about, but Curtis pointed out. It was actually this foot here. It just looked a little bit too plain, but I would echo the same thing. Like maybe just adding a slight bit of texture down here and over here would take this even further. But as it stands, it's excellent.
Please, like put some kind of pads on the feet and just have like a middle finger tattoo, like on the bunny's foot or something. Just a little extra. That'd do so well.
Next up, we've got a piece by Darsh. I believe that there were other submissions. I chose this one because they specifically denoted that they were learning cinematic lighting. And so I think that we can provide some feedback based on that note that they've provided for us. So Shadan, you had something you wanted to say?
Okay, this is... I mean, when you guys look at this one, what do you think this represents here?
Oh,
yeah,
that's interesting. That's going to be the subjective eye of the beholder.
yeah. I just want to see what you guys think about it.
Mix them out.
I have something in my head. because this is an
LAKSHMAN.
Indian dance pose which is really famous. So it's a
Okay.
Bharatanatyam. It's called Bharatanatyam. I think it's one, maybe Kuchipudi, I don't know, but this is like one of the really iconic poses that I've seen in lots and lots of dance performances.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, the word that comes to my mind is escape. Like that's what enters
Hmm.
my mind.
Because dance is a stage performance, I really like the curtains, which represents like a back of a stage, you know? Like when you're dancing, there will be really big curtains in the background. And I think I can connect to this one because lots of stage performances have curtains in the background in India. So just thinking about that.
Yeah, I was going to touch slightly on the materials, which again are not in their full resolution here. But if you want to check out the full resolution, then you're welcome to do so. Link in the description. The materials are great. There's something about the sort of I don't know if it's iridescence or oxidation or the
It
shine.
is iridescence, yeah.
Yeah. In terms of the cinematic lighting itself, I would say you've nailed this. This light here, given that there's no visible source, might be a little bit too dramatic. So maybe if it's dramatic lighting, then that's even stronger. But in terms of cinematic lighting, if we can ignore the fact that there's no visible source for this light here, other than maybe the radiance of the dancer, then I think it's gorgeous. Like this looks like a frame from either a music video or a movie, and typically that's something that, at least to me, screams of like good, cohesive, strong messages or work.
About the lighting, it does confuse me a bit. It kind of feels a bit like abstract cinematic lighting because, as you're kind of saying, I can't identify an actual source for lighting in this image. I know that there's like the bright light coming through the curtains, and we're not really seeing much of a rim on the object. We're seeing the bloom kind of overpower some of the edges rather than there actually being light there. But I think there might be some kind of area light kind of towards the camera, slightly offset to the right, which we're kind of seeing affecting it. But it's a bit hard to tell where the light's actually coming from on this, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing because it's beautiful and it's well lit against the background. But it just makes me feel like it's more of an abstract, more of a symbolic or representative thing rather than something that's actually physical, grounded in reality. So I think it's still perfectly valid, but that's just an observation that I'll make. It makes me think that it's more of like a dreamlike thing rather than an actual stage performance, you know?
yeah, I would vignette it too. Definitely vignette it. I think that would tie in the corners a bit on this image. And I'll echo the sentiment about the strong backlight. I'm not sure what's causing that light. If it's behind this curtain and this curtain is acting as a scrim or a diffuser, the light wouldn't be as sharp coming through there. But if it's bouncing, even if it's bouncing off of that, I would be looking for a lot more spill light coming around and a lot more bounce light in some of the dark areas. I think it would be lightened up a bit. But other than that, like I see where this is going, and I think it's a cool image. I really like it. But like I said, a, a light that bright would be doing a lot more to the scene as well. Even in an exposure, if you're bracketing for that, if you're exposing for the the figure, I think the figure would be a lot darker compared to that light, and that light would be blown out even more. But vice versa, if it's just confusing me, just from a photographic standpoint, it's just confusing. From an abstract standpoint, I think it looks really cool, and I really like it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll just
I,
go with that.
I like this piece a lot. I see everything. It's not only technically good in terms of balance between positive and negative space. Your values are great. If this was an exercise in lighting and texturing and composition, you've nailed it. For me, you've nailed it. Yeah, again, I'm looking at a sort of a dull representation on a monitor that's being cast from another monitor, so it's quite grainy. And yet I can tell that there is subtle texture there, and yeah, that the texture work is amazing. I love, like, the more I look at it, the more I can see that there's more than one thing going on with the texture. There's this wonderful metal texture on the limbs, but then there's sort of like this greeny, coppery. I don't know if it's like oxidized copper or if it's supposed to be more natural or mossy or something. But the subtle contrast between those two in the low values of the positive space of the figure, just like they stick out to me. And this is a sort of thing that I used to teach in my class, where if you want to get a point of high contrast, you always put your low values right next to your high values. And I don't mind the abstract lighting so much. There's subtle hints of where the lighting might be coming from, but yeah, again, this is from an artistic standpoint. I don't mind the abstract lighting sort of having it backlit, but at the same time, whatever this curtain is obviously the light source that is shining on that metal is casting a subtle shadow on the left, and that's what's sort of causing that sort of partial vignette on the left there. Yeah, look, this one I really like.
I want to give my interpretation of the pose. I know Charon, just for anyone that's watching, Charon has linked in a couple of images of of a couple of Indian performers doing a pose which is extremely similar. What's interesting about those ones you've linked, Charon, is they're making a very specific what do I say, gesture with the hand at the
Yeah.
top, and their face is looking off to the side. I feel like that's probably representative of something. But just
Mm-hmm.
assuming that this isn't that, I'll give my kind of take. And the reason why I think escape was the word that came to mind is because the curvature of that leg and the foot being pointed downwards at the bottom there kind of indicates to me that they've moved forward and they've jumped up. And that bottom foot, while they're in the air, the hand pushing away is kind of pushing reality back, and the hand is open at the top as it's reaching up, and they're facing up. They're not looking to the side, they're not looking down, they're looking at what they're reaching for, which is basically to me indicating they're trying to escape a reality. They're kind of jumping up, they're pushing away, and they're reaching for something more. So that's why the word escape comes to mind for me.
Interesting. Actually, that makes more sense. To be honest, I would really not like, because it's also material study. It was really nice to see the material, but if you have a really bright light in the background, like light shining through something, I would not turn on any other light, so that I'll just get the silhouette, and which would kind of look cinematic. I don't know. I thought it looks more dramatic as well. I mean, maybe try that too, and let us know how that looks, Darsh.
Yeah, I would keep pushing this. I think it's a very strong piece. I really like it. I mean, it's definitely something I'd hang on a wall somewhere. Really.
All right. Well,
It's
thanks so much for
official.
the submission, Darsh. Next up, we've got a submission by LAKSHMAN. If you would like to have us review animations as opposed to simple stills or images, as we have been so far, let us know in the comments of this video. We'll take a look at them, respond if there's questions, comments, concerns, or whatnot. But if you'd like us to review animations, definitely let us know, because that's something that we can do. We just need to know if it's something that you would want to watch. So with that said, see the server if you want to see LAKSHMAN's animations, as well as the other submissions by everyone that we have reviewed here today, because several of them submitted more than the pieces that we're looking at. And there's also a whole slew of other submissions there for you to look at.
Again, I think I really like this one. And the thing that stands out to me is, yes, the color scheme, the texture, but more than that, you see, I just got a thing about, whenever things are refracting or reflecting, when they kind of, mirror or say something about the background, there's just something so simple about it, and that is so, it just gets you. And what I like about this is that, yeah, clearly there is some HDRI lighting going on, and you can subtly see it in the reflection on the dome at the top and in some of the eyes. But it's not overpowering. It's perfectly done so that you can see through that and into the texture inside the skull. Now, whether the skull is refracting the background pattern, or it's got that pattern somehow inside the glass, I don't care because I like this. Usually I've seen this trick done before, where they kind of flip the background. So where the orange or the more hotter colors would be, you'd probably usually see that on the left-hand side, and then the blue on the right in the background, and then it'd be sort of flipped in the skull. But I don't know, it just sort of makes sense. I mean, there's value, there's good value here. if I had one critique, I'd maybe blur the background a little bit more. The way I'd take the blurring is take it to the point where you just can't make out it's the pattern, and then just bring it back like a shade so that you can. This is on its way there because like the sharp in focus skull and the blurry background, I just there's something I like about that. that kind of it's very simple. It doesn't have to say anything. It's just something that I look at and just go, whoa. And yeah, this is one of those pieces for me.
Oh yeah, I agree. I love the clear coat factor. I think that's the coolest part for me. Like that's when I immediately went to the top of the skull and I realized that it's a translucent or transparent refractive coat over the rest of the skull. So the pattern is actually, it looks like the pattern's inside, whether it's refracting the environment or not. It's just, and the lighting coming from above, yet coming from below. Like it looks like some of the lights coming from the lower left and the lower right. It's a pretty strong piece. I really like it, and I like the balance of the cools and the warms. This is yeah. I actually stopped and looked at this piece too, and I was like, that's really cool. I think it's pretty strong.
Yeah.
I'd often say like, don't put the subject of the image directly dead center, but there's really nothing else in the image right now, so it's totally fine to put the subject dead center, and it totally looks cool. I dig it.
Yeah.
I do have a couple of things to say. One is stupid, and one's a bit more sensible. The stupid one is I kind of want to taste it. Something about that pattern and the clear coat. It reminds me of these old candies. I can't remember what they were, but they had like these hard outer shells with those kinds of patterns, but the inside was like a softer gum. And there's something about this that just makes me want to chew it, and I don't know why.
It's not a gobstopper, is it? No, gobstoppers are hard all the way down.
No, yeah. It was like that on the outside, but then on the inside it was softer, and I can't describe it, but something about that pattern that reminds me of it.
Oh man.
But yeah, Paul, did you say something about the HDRI earlier? Or
Oh yeah. I said that usually it's used as a cheat. Here,
yeah,
I see it as it's integral to the piece because you're getting this wonderful high value reflection from the bottom along the teeth, which is defining them just enough, and along the top, you're getting that wonderful translucency, which is denoting that it's reflecting environment, but it's not taking away from the texture inside the skull, and so that balance is it's perfect to me.
yeah, I agree about all of that. Except, am I seeing portraits on the side of the skull? Is that what's in the HDRI on the right hand side? Look on the right. Zoom in. Is there a guy in a frame there? Zoom in a bit. A lot. Yeah, just above the eye to the right. When you see it, you'll kind of see it. Are these portraits? Because there's more of them as well, like down the side of the right of the skull.
Oh, interesting.
Is there more than one
Because
HDRI used?
because what I'm seeing here is there's this lovely skull in this abstract environment, but we're inside of an art gallery.
Nice.
So I think if it was blurred a bit more, maybe to remove those, then it would make a bit
Maybe
more
there was
sense.
more than one HDRI used, like there was one for the blue lighting and one for the orange lighting.
Maybe because if you look along the right hand side of the bottom of the jaw there as well, I think the outlines of the kind of portrait shapes are a lot more obvious.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I didn't notice that to start with, and then when I saw it, I was like, wait, is there a dude on the side of his face?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Okay. When it comes to my take, because Curtis wanted to taste it, I can give you the recipe, Curtis. So, okay, because obviously this is a procedural texture. I was wondering how you made it, Lakshman. So let me think and tell. I think you plugged a Voronoi into a wave texture. If that is true, please let us know in the comments. So that's the recipe, Curtis. You can try it out yourself and you can taste it now.
Yum, tasty.
I really like the pattern a lot. And yeah, the clear coat is the one which I really like about this one. And after Curtis told about the portraits, now I really wish that could be a little blurred. But yeah, other than that, it's an amazing piece of art. Really like the lighting and the contrast between the colors, the blues and the dark reds. Yeah.
I don't have much to add to what's already been said. I really enjoyed this one out of the ones that you submitted, and that's why I picked it out. So well done. And thank you so much to everyone who submitted a piece and has submitted one so far during the art review. If we haven't gotten to yours yet, don't fret. We will soon. This actually concludes today's art review. This is the third one that we've done so far. And just now, with this last piece by LAKSHMAN here, we've actually completed reviewing the pieces that have been submitted right before we published the very first art review. So that should give you an idea of just how much we have to go through still and how active the community is. So again, if you'd like to form part, we'd love to have you. We'd love to see your pieces here during this art review session, as well as to have you join us on the community server. The reason we keep plugging it, or the reason that I keep plugging it, is because I think it's a great way for anyone, independent of what your skill set might be in Blender or 3D in general, to take part in a community that's big, that's thriving, that is active, that is supportive. So that said, thanks so much to Curtis, Paul, Sharan, Kev for joining today and for giving us your take on these pieces. Thanks so much to One-Ra Artist, Anthony, Socks, Julian, Bouncy, Matt, Darsh, and LAKSHMAN for your submissions, and to everyone else who submitted thus far. You can expect another art review up on the channel next Tuesday after this one that has dropped. So if you haven't already, if you like this video, please give it a like. That helps the channel grow, helps the community grow, helps the algorithm recognize that this is content that you enjoyed watching. And if you want to be part of this in the long term and you want to get notified of when the next art review will drop, which will be here every Tuesday, we hope, then consider subscribing to the channel. That also helps the channel and the community grow. And consider hitting the notification bell, as YouTubers will tell you to do, because that will help you get notified, especially if you set the notifications to all as opposed to personalized. That said, we've been we, you've been you. We are not CG Matter, but this is the art review.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.